Hello and welcome to the Charmed Life podcast. This podcast is all about magic, metaphysics, mysticism, and the unconditional love of the universe. And I am your host. My name is Tricia Carr. I am an empathic channel, spiritual teacher, hypno healer, as I like to call it. And I am also a podcaster, obviously. I have a professional studio here in Los Angeles, California. And we actually have my husband and I own a studio business where we have post-production audio and services and different rooms where people actually rent it. So if you're ever in LA and you need an audio studio for your audiobook or ADR or something along those lines, well, give us a ring. that business is called The Field Audio. But let's get back to this. Let's talk about this. This episode is with intuitive astrologer Natalie Holbrook. Natalie and I have an amazing time talking about and explaining everything astrology. And she really does. We spent a little over an hour chatting, but I feel like, man, we got a masterclass. Well, let me tell you a little bit about Natalie. It all came to her on a ritualistic beach walk in Los Angeles at a time where loneliness was encapsulating her human experience. As she listened to an astrology podcast explaining Pisces energy, she felt a jolt of resonance. She rushed home, found out how to pull her chart, and saw that her Jupiter, the planet of expansion, sat right there in Pisces in the 8th house, the energy of mysticism, transformation, death, and rebirth. It was in that moment that Natalie remembered her fullest expression, her passion, her calling, and it was sitting right there on her astrological chart. Natalie is so exuberant and generous, and as she says that astrology is her language, and boy, you can really feel it. And as we head into this conversation with Natalie Holbrook, I want to invite you to please subscribe. That's what I want to say, subscribe or follow. I always get a little confused because they used to say subscribe, and now it says follow, at least on my Apple app. So whatever it says on your app, however you're listening. But, I'm on all of the platforms. However you get your fine podcasts, I am there. But I would like for you to also leave a review, if you will. That would be amazing. And reminding you that I have social media, particularly I actually am on Twitter in a couple of places at CharmedLife1111 and also at Tricia Carr Charm. And that is also my Instagram handle at Tricia Carr Charm. Okay, well, without further delay, welcome to this conversation with intuitive astrologer Natalie Holbrook, and I will chat with you on the other side. Well, Natalie, I'm so excited to, get into it all. You are an intuitive astrologer, and I love that. I love that you are, feeling your way through the information. And your story that I've read about is that, astrology came to you intuitively. It hit you in the face. So I'm just so excited to learn all about your journey, your work. And so let us get into it, if you shall.
Hi, yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. And yeah, I love telling people this story because whenever I talk about how astrology came to me, it's this reminder that magic is real and that things are going to happen when we least expect them, and we never know what the heck is going to happen. So I was raised very religious. I was actually raised Mormon. And so I always had this connection to God or connection to source, spirit, whatever you want to call it. To me, it's all the same. Yeah. And I actually went to BYU, the Mormon religious college, and got kicked out for being a party girl and for doing pranks and being a classic 18-year-old. And ever since then, I kind of had this existential crisis of who am I? What is my purpose? What am I supposed to do here? And so I feel like since then, since I was 18 years old, I was always on this path of seeking, and I would go to psychics, I would go party, I would do anything to feel like this is where I fit in and this is where I am doing something of importance. And I lived in Las Vegas for a while. I was working in nightlife. I was working as a music journalist and living this kind of glamorous VIP behind the scenes life where I was I get to be backstage with Diplo and Cascade and interview them and all of that. But there was something so deep within me that felt so unfulfilled. And I started to get really sick. I had a lot of gut issues. And it got to the point that I just couldn't live like that anymore. I was constantly stressed out. I was drinking. I didn't know how to take care of myself. And I think that whenever we have this spiritual awakening, a lot of times it happens through our physical body. It's like we have our emotional bodies, our karmic bodies, and then all of a sudden it manifests in the physical. And so after that, I moved home to my parents' house in the Bay Area, San Francisco, and started going to acupuncture. And it was after that I had this awakening that was like, there's something deeper for me to do, but first I have to align my health. And I became obsessed with nutrition and health. And I was like, I'm going to go back to school for this. And I did. I moved to LA, went back to school, started studying to go get a master's in nutrition. And again, though, I felt this deep pang of loneliness and of like, is this the right thing for me? And of course, to me, I was like, yes, it is the right thing. Like, I'm on this path that feels integrous and I feel like I'm going to be helping people, but something still was missing. And I remember I was walking on the beach one day in Santa Monica and I was listening to a podcast and someone was talking about the energy of Pisces, which I have my Jupiter in, and so do you, actually.
Oh, I do?
Yes.
Oh, I
Yes.
mean, I'm a terrible astrologer, so I've had my chart read many times, but I don't remember any of it.
I'm here to make you remember things, okay?
That's awesome. I love it. And yeah,
Yeah.
and when I read this part of your story, I was like, that feels like me. So anyway,
Yes.
just want to
Oh my gosh.
validate that.
Because you have the exact same placement. So I'm really excited for us to talk about this. Yeah.
Cool.
Where it feels like that there's something bigger and deeper out there, but there's this sense of like, how do I get there? Or it's kind of from another world where you feel kind of alone as a human being, but you know that you're here for something bigger, or this feeling of oneness that you're constantly in search of. And so when I heard this on this podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, I wonder where I have Pisces. I wonder what this is. And I'm a Taurus sun, and that's all that I knew at the time. And so I was like, okay, let me go find a teacher. And I found a teacher who lived in Costa Mesa. So you know where that is, like 2 hours south of LA, basically. And I would drive there every other week to go see her and meet for hours. And within 3 months, I just kind of knew it all. Like it was like it just came. And I always like to say it was like a remembrance, because it was something that felt so near and dear to my heart of, this is the language that I speak. And I started to give readings to my friends. And I was working as a nutritionist at the time. And I started to incorporate this into my nutrition clients as well. And then all of a sudden, COVID hit, and I was still, doing this master's program. And something told me, drop out of this master's program actually before COVID hit and focus on something else. And I didn't know what that something else was. But then lo and behold, I started getting booked out for astrology readings. And that was what that was. And so here we are today. And now it's one of my greatest passions to share it and to teach people how to learn, what is their soul's, one of their many purposes, because we have many purposes in this lifetime, but to just make you comfortable with, this is who I am. This is what my needs are. This is what lights me up. And this is the path that I'm supposed to be on.
Yeah. Ooh, I love that. Beautiful story. And with, there are many paths, there are many callings. And I wonder if with this Jupiter and Pisces, did I say it right? Or Pisces and Jupiter? Jupiter and Pisces. Yeah. I feel like with that particularly, we're going to go through there's something more many times. Like we might kind of plateau and feel a while like, but there's also something to it but this piece is a part of it. Right? Like for you, so probably or possibly for you, astrology is a part of it. Like you said, it's your language, but you'll probably cycle through to, there must be something more, right? That's what because I feel that. That's what I go through.
So much more always. And it's like, you have these tools and they kind of come in as tools, but it's like for me, I know, and this, I've actually never shared this on a podcast, but like there's a film that is very strong in my mind that I know I'm supposed to write. And that has been coming through so deeply. And Pisces also has to do with film and acting and video. It's anything of the illusion. So movies or voiceovers or whatever it might be ties into all of that, because it's, what is it that we see on like a screen or we see far away from us? We can't actually physically touch it, but we know that it's there and it promotes a feeling within us.
And I work with imagery, hypnotic imagery in my session work a lot. I mean, it's mostly, the meditations and all my one-on-one sessions. So imagery, because I'm thinking, as you're saying that, I'm thinking about the screen during meditation too, that plane of the imaginal. And she asked me right before we started if I was an actress. And I used to be. That was actually the first 30 years of my life, maybe a little more than that, even 35. But yeah, and then I was
Wow.
just departed from it. There was something, but there was something more inside that. What I loved about acting, the reason I loved acting really was because I was channeling. And so
Mm,
that's the something more is that language for me. So that's amazing.
yes. Yes.
Yeah. So you've been doing one-on-one sessions. Do you also teach? Because you have a strong vibe of,
Yeah. Yeah,
that
I do.
skill.
I do.
Hmm.
Yeah, thank
Hmm.
you. Yeah, so I love that you picked that up too. Yeah, so I teach astrology. I've taught one level one class this summer. I'm actually launching like a level two, and then also astrology camp, which is going to be so
Mm.
fun. Where it's like going back to actual camp, but learning all about yourself is what you're learning in this camp, while connecting with nature and the outdoors and all of the elements, because the elements are a huge piece of astrology. Earth, air, fire, and water represent so many pieces of who we are on the inside as well.
Mhm. And that's how I relate to astrology because of the elements. That's my greatest way to relate to it. I'm a Fey whisperer, and I can connect with the Davic realm as much as the human realm, I think, if not more. So yeah, the elements are the best way. That's my portal or my connection to it. So that's how I kind of learn each piece. You know what I mean? And also the modalities, the modes. Is that what it's called? Modalities.
Mhm.
Yeah,
You can
like if
say
they're
either one. Mhm.
that helps me to kind of understand it. But it's really experiential. When I learn it because I'm thinking about it and contemplating this piece for a while. I'm observing it in myself. I have to know what my husband's is or my friend's is, so I can kind of observe how they interact with it. And yeah. Also, are you into human design?
I don't teach it, but yeah, I'm into
No.
it for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a reflector, so I think that's the other reason why I have to have other people's information too in order to be able to reflect. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm a generator, but I just learned
Mhm.
actually, I was just in Mexico a couple of weeks ago, and I learned that I have an open identity center. And
Mm.
so I guess that means that I can like really amplify other people's energies and emotions. But if I'm not careful, I can take them on.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But that also, yeah, and that's been like a thing to learn through my life was like hard boundaries. But that also, I do the same thing of like, I have to see, astrology come to life through other people for me to truly understand it. And that's actually how I teach people to learn it is go observe, get
Mhm.
everyone you know's birth charts and see how is this coming to life? What's happening for them? Because that's going to be your greatest teacher.
Yeah, that's wonderful. How do you advise someone who's listening right now to start to really understand their chart or themselves through astrology a little bit more?
Yeah, definitely. I would say for sure the moon is one of the most important things because
Mhm.
the moon is your core needs, it's your emotions, it's why you are the way you are, it's why you think the way you do, it's where you go when you're stressed out. And it's like what you need to feel safe and to feel secure. And so every single moon sign has kind of a different, remedy, so to say, that it could have in order to feel okay. Like for me, for example, I'm a Gemini moon. And Gemini is a teacher, Gemini is the eternal student, and Gemini can be a little crazy at times because it's like there's so, the archetype of it is that it could be two-faced or it could be multi-personalities because it just has this ability to be like, I'm gonna shapeshift. One day I'm this, one day I feel this. Every 30 minutes I change, And so for me learning that gave me so much peace of mind because my whole life I was like, why can't I just focus on one thing? Or why can't I just do this one job or whatever. Why do I always have to have so many passions? I used to have people be like, I can never keep up with you. And I would kind of get offended by that almost of like, well, why? Like it just made me feel almost guilty a little bit. And then when I learned this, it was like, no, I'm actually supposed to have all of these different passions and be so multidimensional that now I can embrace it as one of my greatest skills and superpowers. So when you learn your moon, you can learn your heroic and heroine patterns.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's how you feel inside. It's your emotion. It governs emotions. Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Exactly.
and I'm Capricorn moon, and I sat with that for a while, and just kind of understanding that I'm Capricorn moon made me feel so wonderful, so grounded because I'm Pisces, and you know what I mean. I feel like, so I really And I love the earth element. So finding out and really embracing my cap moon, it in a with different adjectives, but just like you, made me feel so comfortable. And I love the strength of earth. And that's what I think. Sometimes we think of earth as rigid, you know what I mean, and boring and heavy and dense. But no, earth is strong. Earth is like the womb of the mother, you know, and that's the thing.
Yes.
It's not slow. It takes time to gestate, but then the momentum is like giving birth. That's what the earth element will do. So I think it's really beautiful.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
And I think that also is like one of the greatest ways is get to know your elements, get to know what is the element of your moon, what is the element of your sun, if you were to look up your planetary, outline and kind of grid, where do you have the most energy? Where are you lacking some energy? And look at, because I have a lot of earth too, and looking at that of like, can I sometimes fall into a depression? Or do I have to be really patient and work on being okay with things going slow and not comparing myself to anyone else that's on this fast track? It's like, no, my path is long and slow and steady, and that's okay. But then there's other pieces that are very fun and fiery and airy. So you get to know your chart in that way and look at, okay, well, in what way do I do love? In what way do I make money? In what way do I need rest? And then we can see all of that through the different
And now for these
elements.
messages. Creation of the outside world really does start inside. You can feel better and receive more. Miraculous shifts happen when you align your inner world with your higher self and your soul blueprint. My clients report immediate and long-lasting results of the inner and outer world. I channel guidance and energy transmissions from your higher self and spirit team. As you resonate with the transmission, change occurs. In sessions and coaching, mentoring, I use my abilities of empathic channeling, hypno-healing, quantum resonance healing, as well as spiritual counseling, neurolinguistic programming, and so much more. Check out my calendar for my session work and my coaching and mentoring. I would love to work in your beautiful energy. Lightshine Academy presents the 2022 Channeling Intensive. Open your divine channel to higher consciousness, cosmic intelligences, and source energy. This program begins the week of May 9th, 2022. This is an innovative and groundbreaking intensive designed specifically to connect you to spirit so you can draw down potent, useful, and transformative energy. The education you will receive will equip you to have dynamic and evidential encounters in the world of spirit. The experiences you will have will put you up close and personal with your own divine channeling team. We will meet live and online for education and coaching over the course of this 8-week program. Expect your life to change drastically as new information, energy, revelations, and love pours into you, through you, by the way of spiritual channeling. Crystal Compton and I invite you to check it out at class.lightshineacademy.com/2022CI. This intensive is not to be missed. We hope to see you in the 2022 Channeling Intensive. Hello, my friend. It's Tricia Carr. I'm here to invite you to my coaching and mentoring portal, Modern Mystic Life. This high-value, easy access portal is like having a spiritual mentor right in your pocket. You'll receive all the inspiration right there in your text messenger, and you can also access it on your desktop. I will be delivering the tools and technology that are proven to evolve your abundant life inside and out. You will receive daily inspiration, education, and practices to help you evolve your life as a mystic and a human spiritual being. Plus, you will have access to my monthly workshops in which I teach and channel cutting-edge spiritual content, and also will give guidance, intuitive readings, and attunements right there in our group setting. I worked with Spirit to co-create and manifest the best way to support you and in the easiest fashion, and here it is. I'm very excited to co-create with you too. So, welcome, my friend, to your modern mystic life. And now back to the show. And then I obviously everyone knows their sun sign, and I've known that since I was a kid, of course, and I'm Pisces. So the message that I got as a kid is that Pisces are too sensitive, and they're not flighty, actually watery and waffly and blah, and all that. So that was the shadow that I heard about my sign, and
Yeah.
too sensitive, which is just like the worst insult to to say to anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's no antidote to that. Actually, before I move on from that, I was watching The Office, old reruns of The Office, and they were saying, "Oh, Michael is so sensitive," but he's not sensitive. He's narcissistic because he gets upset if you don't like praise him, and then he like reacts, and that's the difference between a sensitive person who is sensing and pulling in and loving, or throwing a fit. Throwing a fit does not mean you're sensitive. It kind of means the opposite. So
Yeah.
just anyone who's ever told they're too sensitive as an empath or a Pisces or some other water sign, Scorpio, as well, or anything like that.
Yeah.
That's not what the water element isn't too sensitive. It's perfectly sensitive. I mean,
Yeah.
the ocean can't be too sensitive, can it?
Exactly. I just got chills when you said that. No, totally. And with water is the mystic. Water is the alchemist. It is the ones that say, I feel this, and so I'm going to do something about it, whether that's creating something, whether that it's that water triggering you personally to have some type of release. Like maybe you do need to cry, or maybe there's something that needs to be healed within, or maybe you get so, sensitive to it that it creates a reaction that you say, I have to change something, or I have to make, some type of move in my life. And that is a superpower, because sensitivity is what guides us.
Yes. I keep laughing because you keep saying all the things that I say. Magic is real. Sensitivity is a superpower. And I don't want to sidetrack too much. So yeah, so the sun sign's like your personality. It's kind of like your being, right? And do you think does it take like some time to kind of understand that in a more, I don't know. I wonder if it's not until past the first Saturn return that you kind of are like, oh, I get it. And I get the full, at least one round of what this is. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we grow into our charts. So it's like you have your chart. We're always going to be like, oh, this piece doesn't really resonate with me yet. And then our Saturn return hits, and you're like, ooh, I see that now. And especially then our second Saturn return, when we're 58 to 60, then we're like, oh, yes, these things have really come into fruition. But I even personally, being a Taurus sun, when I was younger and I would read the horoscopes, I'd be like, I don't really resonate with this. Like I didn't resonate with, I would always read they're materialistic and they're really stubborn. And of course I'm like, I'm not stubborn, which is like what a stubborn person would say, right?
Yeah.
But I was a little bit lazy when I was younger, just because my mom like did everything for me. So it was kind of like, you look at it as these situations of maybe at the time you weren't choosing that, or I wasn't choosing to be lazy, but my mom was obsessed with cleaning. And so I didn't have to. So it made me lazy, And so it's like, there's always the situations where I had to learn, how do I not be lazy later in life? When I went off to college and I was like, I don't know how the heck to do laundry. And other people were like, what? And I'm like, it's not because I'm lazy. I just didn't learn. So, and with earth signs too, especially Taurus and Capricorn, there is this slowness to it where it's like, sometimes things come later in your life. Virgo is not as much that, because Virgo is ruled by Mercury, which is the sign of thought and mind. So Virgos are like, I want to learn everything right away so that I'm not slow like my other earth counterparts.
And they love to project too, right? They want to plan and project. So in a sense, they're already living in the future, I think, right?
Yes. They like to make sure that there's, a structure, that they're not going to just be left behind.
I love Virgos. I have a few in my life that I'm just like, they're just some, possibly because of the ones that but I feel, I don't know, maybe you can tell me in my chart, why do I have a tingliness about Virgos in general? I will admit that my favorite sister, which is well known in my family and everyone understands that she's my favorite sister. So I'm not breaking any news to anyone. My favorite sister is a Virgo, and one day we don't talk a lot just for no reason. She called me out of the blue one day, or she texted me, "Hey, I need to talk to you sometime. Can you give me a call when you can?" And I text back, "Sure." And it was like middle of the day. By the next morning, she was like, "Can you call me?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah." And so I called her, and she's like, "In 8 months, I want to come and visit. Can I stay over one night?" I'm like, Why did you need me to stop my life for that? I would call 2 weeks in advance.
Yeah. Oh, me too. Yeah. Like, hey, can I come visit in a week? Yeah.
Yeah. No? Okay, I'll stay at a hotel.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, so in your chart, the reason why you love Virgos is because Virgo actually rules your second house. And the
Okay.
second house is the house of value. And it's also the house
Mm.
of self worth. So when Virgo falls into your second house, we would say that someone who has a Virgo sun, we could place their sun, just for a visual, if we were to imagine their sun was in your second house, that shines upon your self worth. So they actually help you to see and love your own self a little bit more.
I cry. That's why she's my favorite one. And she's all my sisters are older than me. I'm the youngest. But she used to hold me when I was a baby. She's 8 years older than me. And so when I was a baby, she just loved me so much. And she would she would rock me and she would sing, "You are so beautiful." And she kind of gets that kitty, when you're
Yeah,
holding a cat and you're like, I might squeeze it to death.
yeah.
So she would sing, "You are so beautiful" to me when I was a baby. So yeah, she was giving me all this self-worth. And that was the song she sang to me. Wow, that's mind-blowing. Isn't that amazing?
Yes. And also because that's what you admire in your own life. And like that's also how you make your money is when you're being of service. When you are being more Virgo, then you actually make money better. So this means that you need,
Planning?
yes, you need to plan. You
Wow.
also need to be in a good routine. Like Virgos love routines, right? And so if you are scattered and you're like, oh my gosh, what am I doing today? Then things are not going to be in flow. And so you have to actually bring in that sense of Virgo-ness into your life to best set the foundation for you to optimize your wealth and abundance overall.
That makes so much sense. But you know what I do? And so like my friend and business partner, she tells me I'm so disciplined. Like she admires me for being disciplined. But I have to create it or I'm just like again flowing all around. And so as like a reflector going between all the modalities, I have no authority. I have no inner authority. So I
Mhm.
kind of have to create a thought form or a structure of authority and follow it. But then I also have to be careful because so that I don't become codependent and let it overrule me. You know what I mean? Like I have to review my routines every now and again and say, do I need to shift it and upgrade it and not just follow it like a servant until it kills me,
Yeah.
But yeah, that resonates so much. I see. I'm learning one little thing. At least if I just take this piece, maybe I'll be a better astrologer. Look one piece at a time. Because I went sun, moon, and then the ascendant, which
Mhm.
is I think is that those top three are the ones that are really great ways for us to kind of understand
Yeah.
a lot about ourselves astrologically.
Yeah, absolutely. To understand like the deepest parts of you. And, the Venus sign is really good to understand your Venus being in Aquarius. So that means that you are drawn to anything that is unique and different from you.
My
And
husband's sun sign is Aquarius. Is
it's,
that
yeah,
so he's shining in my house that way in my love house?
yes, he does. He shines in your seventh house, actually, which is the house of love. So he's there.
Wild.
We look to that house. And yeah, I'm a Leo rising too, actually. So you and I,
Oh,
like,
cool.
when we hopped on, we were like, oh, hey, hey, friend. you know,
We're like, rawr, rawr. Yeah, me too. Rawr, rawr.
here. and yeah, and so whenever it's funny because I have a lot of friends too, and have dated people who are Aquarius because they show us like, oh, these are the types of relationships we like to have, or we like to have people that are somehow there's something like different about them. Like, is your husband
Yeah.
different from you in some way? Like, how are you guys different?
Oh, yeah. How are we different from one another? Oh, we're very different. Well, and I think that's what we love about one another. He says that I'm a bag of loaded springs. So that means like if you have to visualize it. Like if you have a bag and then all these springs are like, you can't just open it and take out one. But there's a lot of tension when it's closed too. So it can be very quiet, but it's
Mhm.
it's got a lot brewing. And so, well, once again, as a reflector, my signature is surprise. That's my life signature. And so he just loves to be surprised, I think. And he kind of has this cruise along with it. It's almost like he loves to be surprised, but he's not even that surprised that he's surprised. You know what I mean? Because he's got that Aquarius kind of like, I don't know, it's a sort of steadiness, but he
Yeah.
loves to surprise me too. So yeah, we're very different. And well, one way we're different is because I'm like, this feels like this and it feels, and I'm experiencing this feeling. And he goes, but what does that look like? And I go, very good question. I don't know. Let's find out.
Oh, I love that. It's like you guys get to also create together, which I
Uh-huh.
feel like is something you definitely need with the Venus and Aquarius. And then him being an Aquarius, Aquariuses are all about invention and creation.
Yes, he is very innovative.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love it. So let's talk about fire a little bit. We both have Leo rising. And so the fire element, I have a couple of Aries too, who just are awesome. They're so awesome. And one thing that I notice about my Aries is that they start things,
Mhm.
but that's like it's not their job to complete them necessarily. The ones that I know, I mean, they can follow through, and it's obviously everyone's individual, but they're just great at starting fires, you know what I mean? And then like tending to them for a moment, letting them burn, and then starting the next one. That's what it feels like to me, or what I've observed from my Aries.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And that's because Aries is cardinal, to go back to the modalities. It's like any of these cardinal energies, which is Aries, Libra, Capricorn, and Cancer, these are all the starters. They're like, I have an idea, I'm going to do it. Aries starts with their idea or with their plan or with their trip, or, they're like, I want to start this business, but then you finish it, or then you take over, or I'll find the investors and then, you guys run it, whatever. And Libra is like, I'm going to start a relationship. I'm going to start this thing with friends and with family. And Cancer is like, I'm going to be the mom. I'm going to start a family. And Capricorn is like, and I'm going to start a business. So all of these, ways of starting. What I love that Aries is that first one out of the gate. They do it with the fire. It's like this excitement. And that's what fire energy is. It's like, how do I, be me? How do I shine? How do I be an inspiration? And if we think about actual fire, it's like fire is what gives us the light. So we have
Yeah.
to actually use fire to be the light ourselves and then also to shine the light upon other people. It's kind of like that's the beauty and the greatest piece of fire is how do we find that flame and fan that flame within us and then get to a point of such confidence within ourselves and within our gifts that we can take our candle. If you literally visualize a candle and you then light someone else's candle, you light someone else's flame, you're not going to lose your flame. Like one candle doesn't go out because it's lighting another. And so
Hmm.
that's the beauty there is that then you can share it and shine it on other people and they get to shine and find themselves too. So fire are some of our greatest teachers. And then the shadow is that it can also be, angry, or it can be narcissistic, or it can be very egocentric, or it can be really hot tempered or way too compulsive. And so it's like, how do we find that fire and find the great balance and harmony within us so that we have just enough energy so we're not completely overwhelmed or overworking, but then also not allowing ourselves to be seen and shine.
Yeah, and with fire, you think about it, the fire element rules our metabolism. So
Mm,
it's giving us stamina and momentum and stability, really, in a different way than like Earth does. But you know what I mean, like an energetic kind of hum. And but if we have too much fire, if it goes to the shadow, then we can become inflamed. We have, inflammation, and that creates disease. And so, yeah, that's really beautiful about that. But Leo is not. What is the cardinal? It's not cardinal. It is, what is it? Mutable.
fixed. Leo's fixed sign.
Fixed. Okay, thank you. All right. Yes. So tell us about what the fixed elements are like. I mean, the fixed archetypes are like.
Yes. Okay. So we have Taurus is the first one, and then we have Leo, and then Scorpio, and then Aquarius. And so fixed energies, they know what they want, and they have this, desire to get it. If we think about fires, and if we were to use the example of fires, for example, cardinals are like little fires everywhere. It's like I'm starting this thing, and I'm going to go for it. And then the fixed energies are just one big fire. It's like this is the thing I'm fully focused on this. And this is a really good thing for you to know about yourself if you're a Taurus, a Scorpio, a Leo, or an Aquarius, is that you have, especially for your sun, moon, or rising, is that you have this ability to be really determined and focused and fixated on one thing so that you can be like, this is where I'm supposed to be into my zone of genius. If you're like, I have a million projects going on and I have this and this and this, and I don't know what to do, that's going to really kind of distort your way of being successful because you're supposed to be fixated on that one thing, And so they also are very strong beings. They know what they want. They usually have a plan. Sometimes it's like people really have to, give them the like what do you call it when you like put them under your shoulder or whatever, or put them under your elbow and say, we have to change, or you have to look at this in a different light, because the piece of being stubborn there is also so strong that it can sometimes be this my way or the highway type of energy with fixed signs.
Wow. And you have fixed in your sun and in your ascendant.
And in my rising. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant to say, yeah, that's right. So,
Rising,
yeah. So, but then you have this multi-passionate feeling about you too. So what's great about that contrast or that paradox actually can give you a well-roundedness, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I really had to learn that the hard way, because I would get really obsessed with things. Like whatever job that I was doing, I'd be like, okay, this is my focus. I'm into it. And I realized that that's how I would be successful, either financially or in my relationships, is that I would put a lot of energy into it. But that to me, I would have an imbalance. And so balance for me has been something that I've had to work on my whole life, because it would kind of go between being really fixed and then being like, oh, and I'm going to do this and this and this and this, and I'm all over the place. And so it's like, how can you still have the discipline to, just work on one thing for 4 hours, but then go do something else to also bring in fun in your life, and not just be only in your career or only in your relationship or only in, whatever it is that you're creating.
Yeah. Very cool. I'm actually just maybe the simplest little epiphany ever. Because I tell you, I'm a bad astrologer. But, it's almost like in the different in the different houses, like you said, my second house, I have Virgo. So in that little sliver, that little regard, I need to be more like a Virgo. And that's so basically, I guess that's maybe that's also me. Where's Gemini? Where's Gemini in my chart? Should I pull it up? We can
Gemini
look at it
is your 11th house. You actually have a lot of Gemini energy. Mm-hmm.
The reason I ask that is because my mom is Gemini. So, of course, you always don't want to be like your mom, right? So it's in the 11th house. So tell us let me know what that's all about.
Yes. Okay. So, I love how you said that, for your second house, it's like you be more Virgo. That's a great way to put it for how we can use the ruler of each house as to how we display or how we emanate that house. So the 11th house is all about groups and associations. It's about organizations. It's about, doing things actually like this, like podcasting, where we have a group, there's a group of people listening, or there's a group of people on social media, but you and I are talking so that we can somehow uplift the collective. Because whenever we have a group, there's usually a meaning for the group. There's something that, people are getting out of it. There's a reason that people are meeting together. And so with the 11th house, it's very specific that we're meeting for some reason. And there usually is something about making the world a better place, or being humanitarian, or somehow uplifting the collective. And so you do this in a Gemini way. And Gemini, is the messenger. It's the communicator. And so this is really showing that, you're here to communicate and to somehow raise the vibe of the collective by you being that messenger. And this can be in any way. This can be in podcasting. This can be in journalism. This can be in acting. This can be in how is it that you are somehow bringing or delivering some type of word or information or idea to people on a grand scale. And so then we go even deeper into it, because you have, 3 placements here. You have Mars, which is all about where you have passion and where you take action. So anybody listening, if you have your chart, wherever your Mars is, the sign that your Mars is in is going to show you what motivates you. So you would be motivated by this Gemini energy of, oh, I want to go learn. I want to be multifaceted. You're an eternal student for sure. Because Gemini is the eternal student. It constantly wants to learn. It needs to learn, or else it's going to get really bored. And so that's why, me having a Gemini moon, I was like, oh, I'm bored of this already. Right? And so it's like you can kind of move on and get really excited very easily. But then the other side of Mars is, yes, we're passionate, but also it can be like a battle. I always love to say that Mars is like the Navy SEAL of the zodiac, where sometimes it's like, let's go, I'm energized, let's go. But then it's like, and we're gonna fight. I have a war. Like we've got work to do, we've got things to do. We've got to gear up and we're gonna fight. And so with that fighting energy, that means that sometimes other people who are of that sign could also bring you some type of battle. So that would make sense if you and your mom ever had battles, or if you've ever had any type
Never.
Never. Crazy. And yeah, people especially who have a strong Gemini energy might like irk you a little bit, where you're like, wow, there was something about this thing where it irritated me, or it made me mad. And maybe they're not specifically Gemini sun, but like they exude some of those Gemini qualities of the shadow of that, which could be a little bit gossipy or petty or jealous, or, really up in your business or anything like that.
So Gemini generally is kind of multi-passionate, the eternal student, and the messenger, right?
Yes.
Are those three good? Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
So in my 11th, not my 11th, in Mars, which is about passion and what else is it about? Motivation. I need to be more like Gemini, or that's what kind of activates that for me, right?
Exactly. It's like, that's what activates you. That's what you are naturally going to get inspired and energized by. So anything that is of communication, like do you love to read?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, loving to read is one of those. And there's a lot of people who don't love to read, but Geminis are like, I want to soak up all of the information. And so think about, okay, anything that is of Gemini essence and nature, you get really excited by. That's what drives you. That's what is your spark of motivation.
So just as a way to, like, I don't know, round it out a little bit. What is your Mars, and what is the quality of that?
Yeah, so my Mars is Capricorn. Okay. And so I get very motivated by any type of those Capricorn qualities. So that would look like being an entrepreneur, or having my own business, or really kind of, I definitely, when I was younger, had a lot of this, like, I want to be at the top, or I want to be seen. And sometimes that's very Capricorn too, of wanting to climb to the top of the ladder. And I had to go through a lot of ego deaths to really get past that. And Capricorn also is very driven by the earth. It's like, we love the earth. There's just such kind of like this ancient wisdom to it too. I always love to say that Capricorn is like the grandmother oak tree in Pocahontas, where it just has this natural exudance of, okay, I'm going to teach you and I'm going to nurture you, but I'm also going to be a little bit stern and strict. And there's also a connection to like indigenous cultures and to the land of our elders and, our ancestors and everything, and really worshiping that. Like, what is the energy of this tree? What is the meaning of this flower or this plant? And sitting and meditating with all of that. So that's what really energizes me.
Yeah, you're poking me in my moon, so I'm getting the chills.
Yeah, I have that in common. And actually what's really neat is that, you can put two charts on top of each other and do a whole, synastry relationship reading. And you and I have our Mars and moon very, very close. So that means that we could just talk forever and ever, and probably have all of these similar passions, probably go out and have so much fun together too. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. I love it. I love it, of course. My moon. And that's one of the things I find myself, I laugh at myself because I go, I love my Capricorn moon. And I'm like, well, of course, it's my emotions. You know what I mean? Everyone probably loves whatever their moon is. It just makes me say that.
People don't, though. Some people, mainly the Scorpio moons, I've noticed, they're like, oh, this Scorpio moon. And that makes sense because Scorpios sometimes have fear, or they sometimes have this feeling of like, oh, everything's hard, and that's the shadow side. We're like, oh man, I have to go through this, or I have to go through this trauma, or I have to go through this level of transformation. And they're like, why me? And so, and same with Pisces moon actually too, is that the shadow would be victim mentality. But, really learning.
I can't imagine. I would not want to have a Pisces moon.
It's intense. Yeah. Talk about like the sensitivity of the superpower, because that's your emotions. And then it's just sensitive all the time. My mom is a Pisces moon. And so I grew up with that.
What is your mom's sun sign?
She's an Aries. Yeah.
Okay.
And a Scorpio rising.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So, okay. All right. We're moving all over, but I want to make sure, I would love for people to come away with the modes. Is it modes or modalities?
Modalities.
Okay. So the modalities.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm confusing it with word node, which is totally different. So, okay, we talked about fixed, we talked about cardinal, we didn't talk about mutable yet, right?
Yes, we did not.
Okay.
So
Can we
no,
talk
we
about
did
that?
not. Yes, we did not. So the mutables are going to start with Gemini, which is probably a part of why this conversation is like, we're going to be everywhere because my Gemini moon, and then Gemini rules, where you have Mars. So Gemini and Sagittarius, and then
Capricorn, right?
yes, no, not Capricorn.
Oh, I thought it was.
Gemini, sorry. Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. There we go. I had an
Okay. Pisces. Okay, that's what I'm thinking.
I
Yeah.
had a mutable moment. Yes.
Mhm.
So Gemini, Virgo, Pisces, and Sagittarius. And so what this means is these energies can shift so quickly. They can move around and they can say, oh, actually, I have this new idea. I'm going to do this thing. And so that would be the shadow, right? Is that there can be too much of this flakiness, or that they can feel a little bit all over the place. But the beauty of it is, oh, wow, I get to be adaptable. And oh, something happens, well, I can move and I can actually just make friends with anyone, or I can see the silver linings. And especially if we look at these four signs, Gemini, it's like it can walk into a room and it can network like no one else. It can be like, oh, I left with, now we used to say everyone's business cards. Now we say like everyone's Instagram handles or everyone's podcast or whatever. And they just have this ability to light up the room and to go in and just do that. And Pisces can do this in the sense of I can go in and I can change who I am to adapt to this, this environment. Or I can walk into an art gallery or to, a beautiful scene in nature, and I can say, wow, I'm going to capture this memory and then mutate it, like literally turn it into something else that's a memory, or into a piece of art, or into a song, right? And then Virgo does this in the sense where they come and they're like, okay, I am here to be grounded, but also to be adaptable, very much like nature. I have to learn, how do I move with the wind? And how do I be like a flower that has not bloomed yet, but is almost there? It's like I have to practice that ability to be interchangeable. And then with Sagittarius is like, oh, I'm going to this new country and I'm going to a new ashram and I'm going to, sit and study this thing. Or I'm always constantly learning something new and I'm able to adapt to my own fire.
Yeah. Of course, I'm laughing about the friends that I know who you're talking about, their sun signs at least. My friend Hillary Jackendoff, who's been on the podcast before, and she should be on again pretty soon. She's a Virgo, and she is, what's so beautiful about, she's a wonderful, person who works on herself. And so she's very much the light of who she is.
Yeah.
And she's a Virgo. She knows what she needs. She knows that she plans, but it's almost like you wouldn't know because she doesn't project it onto others. She doesn't make other people answer her call like my sister did. No, I'm kidding. But, she realizes, okay, if that doesn't work for them, if this, it's more, she understands it's a personal practice and she doesn't insist that she's not controlling about it. And I think that's really, really beautiful. That's her mutability. That's the mutability of the Virgo.
Absolutely, is that they let it go, and it's kind of like, Virgo is one of the signs that is the most tied to the body. And if you think about when we have issues in our body, if, I was listening to something where I was listening to the book called How to Do the Work, and by the holistic psychologist on Instagram, I believe her name's Nicola Perla. And she says, she says that she gave this example that someone was told, you have cancer and you're going to die in 3 weeks. And he said, okay. And then he died in 1 week, it was something like this, where it was because he believed that. Where if with the sign of Virgo, it's so connected to manifesting within our body because it's ruled by Mercury. It has this mutable ability of, oh, whatever I think, however I change, is then going to affect the earth, which is my body, So what you think is going to happen with your body. What you think is going to happen surrounding you. And Virgo has this so, so strongly because of that Mercury connection and then being so tied to the body that we can all really learn from this Virgo energy. And the beautiful thing, we all have Virgo within our charts. This isn't just Virgo sun or rising, but it's that, how is it that I can look at my body? I can look at any of the pains or the illnesses that are there and fully surrender and say, okay, I'm going to be fully detached from this, do what I need to do to keep myself healthy, drink my teas, take my supplements, whatever that might be, eat my healthy diet, live with as little stress as possible as we can in 2022, but then say, I surrender to this, and I believe that it's for teaching me this lesson. And I think that's something that Virgo really emanates as their mutability that we can all learn from.
That's wonderful. I have a question about my chart. If we, I want to know. I remember when I got a reading, and I remember about my Mercury that my reader said something along the lines of it being compromised or weak or something like that,
Let me
which I took I took it hard, so I must have interpreted it wrong.
Yeah, well, first of all, nothing is wrong with your Mercury.
Right. I'm sure he didn't mean that, but that's what I took away.
Yeah, I have such a hard time with astrologers who say things like this because we always remember them, and that can be very disheartening to the person on the receiving end, but it also puts a really bad taint on astrology in general because then people are like, oh, well, this person told me this, so then I'm this, and it's like, no, astrology is all up to your own interpretation, and it changes. Like, you can be this thing, you can be born with this, and then you say, this isn't actually my problem. This is the thing that I get to turn into my solution. So
Right.
I think that what this astrologer had probably said to you was something about maybe your Mercury being at 0 degrees, because 0 degrees, so whenever we have a 0 or a 29, which you have both, you have a 29 for your ascendant and a 0. 0 is, it's like you're first learning how to do this for the very first time. And
Mm.
so you're learning how to communicate like a Pisces for the very first time. And so when we say communicate like a Pisces, and that's because your Mercury is in Pisces, Pisces can be, it's so imaginative. And it also, it can be a little bit watery in that sense of who am I? Where am I? And it can be really kind of floaty almost, And so that's something that you've probably had to work through a little bit of like, how do I structure my thoughts and not get lost in my mind, not get lost in my thoughts, not get lost in victim mentality, because sometimes that's definitely the shadow of Pisces too, is this victimization. And I would say that that's kind of why, but the beautiful thing here is that you get to learn how to reprogram your subconscious because Pisces is so connected to the divine and to spirit energy that it's like actually what you think you get to make so powerful. You just have to be extra conscientious of it because Pisces also rules the subconscious. And so there's a strong subconscious layer to you that if you're not aware of, it can really take over you. So does that resonate?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I, went to school like Gemini would have me do in my my Mars
Uh-huh.
for hypnotherapy, for clinical hypnotherapy, which is all about the subconscious mind. And before that, my yes, it's always been about meditation and programming the subconscious mind and everything. So I think, with human design, which I'm not an expert in at all, but there is one of the four arrows that will tell you if it's pointed left or right. It tells you if you are a specific manifester or a non-specific manifester. Excuse me, non-specific manifester. And so I just kind of felt maybe some connection. I'm a specific manifester. So what you were just saying made some sense to me in relation to that. Like you said,
Yeah,
if I reprogram my subconscious mind or I can visualize it. I mean, it still
yeah,
doesn't mean that you hold too tightly to a picture, even
right.
if you're a specific manifester, because that's conditional and that's not how manifestation works. But so that's what I'm feeling in that. Maybe that's what that is. The way that I can change my vision of something and then let that be the way that it unfolds. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. That's what I love about human design and astrology and using them together is like we see these synchronicities of like, oh yeah, and then it's also explained here in astrology because human design uses astrology too. So it's like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, that's really beautiful. Mm-hmm.
And are you into the gene keys yet?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I was a few weeks ago, I was like crying to a friend about something and she's obsessed with gene keys and she was like, stop, let's look up your gene keys. And I was like, okay. So yeah,
Yes.
my main one, I think it's like 23.
Okay. And
Yeah.
what's that? What is the shadow gift and city? Do you remember?
Oh, I'd have to, okay. the city or the gift, I forget, but I know that it's quintessence is like
Oh, yeah.
the
Hmm.
main thing.
I
And then
know.
there's something about like speech and communication is a big one. Um, I don't remember what the shadow is. Or it might be about my tongue. It's like what I speak or what I don't speak. And when I was younger, I used to make up stories all the time. And this is also the shadow of Gemini, is that it will lie. And I used to do this, and and I got in a lot of trouble for it. And I would lie about, like, when I was younger, I stole things. Like, I was this little rebel, and got in trouble for that, right? Which is like the lying. It's the not being of integrity and not being truthful. And I had to go through these things of really also then unpacking, why am I doing that? And that's what I loved in my chart seeing. Like, when I learned I was a Gemini moon, it was like there's just this thing of mischief, and that you kind of love that. And I also am my north node is in Aries, and so there's this piece of like living on the edge and living for the thrill of things. And then, when you go into your astrology and you look at the aspects and you go into this way deeper level of like, wow, I can also see how the planets are talking to each other. Then I saw that I had a lot happening that was like, oh yeah, and you just have to break the rules sometimes.
Greater good, kind of breaking the rules, be above the law a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that a Taurus thing too? Maybe sometimes being a little bit above the law?
I would say that that's more of like a Capricorn thing and an
Okay.
Aquarius thing. And so that would be definitely like an 11th house type of thing. So if you ever feel like that as well, like you have some of that there too. But like you and I have very similar charts actually, because my 11th house is very packed. And so there is this piece of like, your rules don't apply to me.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, but because the reason the rules don't apply to me more, I know that sometimes I think about it, or maybe as I've matured into it, is because the rules aren't good enough. So there's an ethics thing there too. So the rules aren't good enough. So it's not just for me; it's also for everyone. So we
Yeah.
have to do something else. It's like, oh well, in my profile, I'm a heretic. 5-1. I'm a 5-1, and that's the heretics. And you got to dust things up, got to mess things up, got to upset things, and obviously in a positive sense, that would be to change and to make good change. In a negative sense, it's selfish, but and just trying to survive, maybe just trying to get by. That kind of selfishness. Not all selfishness can be forgiven. It's not just to be better than someone. It can be the idea to survive. That's what the unconscious believes. That's really cool. I want to ask you another question about my chart, and it was about, oh, I don't know. Well, I have a few, but I don't want to. What do you think is interesting? Like, what should I look at?
Oh,
I can see how there's things that are packed in one area and then not in another.
yeah. So whenever, you have a pretty balanced chart in terms of like where all of the planets are. And so whenever I see that, it's kind of like, well, your soul said, I'm here to learn a little bit about everything. I really want to focus on these different areas of life. So your third house, has your Pluto and it has Uranus. And with having Pluto in the third house, this means that you're going to be transformed through community, and that you might have to leave a certain community so that you then can build your own, or that you then
Mm.
find one in a different way. And whenever we have Pluto in the third house, it's like you had to go through some type of death and rebirth of learning about that community. This can also be sometimes family, because a family is a community. It can be a religion. It can be any type of group or way of thinking. It can even be the way that you personally communicate, because the third house also represents how we communicate. So if at any times you had this energy that wasn't speaking up, or that wasn't communicative, or maybe was self-harming in your thoughts or anything, you had to really shift that and change that. And that whenever we see our Pluto is where you're going to transform the most, and it's how you transform. So
Mm.
that was there. And then because it's in Libra, it also shows that there's something about partnership that is really transformative to you as well. So it's through relating, it's through one-on-one connections, it's through, groups, or through kind of like how you are in the realm of being interconnected, that also is what is your biggest catalyst for transformation.
Wow. Yeah, I did leave religion and my family. So
Mm-hmm.
um, I know what I wanted to ask you is I'm basically in my Chiron return.
Mm-hmm.
It's happening next summer, I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah. And I think it's in Aries, right? That's,
Yeah, it's funny
yeah.
to point that out next. Yeah.
Yeah. I looked that up. I don't know a lot about it, but this is what's just to share with everyone. So I recently, I've been going through, well, I think I'm, at least for now, I'm not in it, but I was having a serious dark night of the soul,
Mhm,
existential crisis,
mhm,
to where I mean, I definitely had some some attachments, and they were thinking for me, and they were thinking about the abuse, like reliving the abuse that I had as a child,
mhm.
and judging me for it too, saying, why didn't you leave? And I'm talking back to it saying, because I was 14, I had nowhere to go. You know what I mean? Like, and, and so, but it was very painful. And it was like saying, this is, always going to be, you're too broken.
Yeah.
You're never going to recover because you're too broken. And I was even talking to a friend. I was like kind of letting someone in on what was going on with me, because she was like, what's going on? Like, I haven't talked to you and I don't know what's going on. And she could feel it. And when I with this stuff that was going on, I'm just sharing with everyone too, because I'm on this podcast and I'm like, "Ba-ba-da-ba-ba-da," but I'm a human. You know what I mean? Like, I'm here usually for others, but
Ah,
so I want everyone to know. I just taking a moment to share this. But anyway, when I was talking to this one friend and I was really like activated, she was so worried. She asked me if my husband was home. She's like, "Are you alone?" Like, that's how worried, that's how, you know, deep and dark it was going on
yeah.
with me. Um, so as I was starting to pivot out of it, and like I was in meditation, it was probably a few days in, and it was starting to turn around. I was starting to feel a little bit better. In my meditation, spirit told me, Chiron. And I was like, I didn't know. I don't know when it returns. I didn't have that because, again, I'm a bad astrologer. So I went and looked it up, and it's next summer. I'm within a year of it. So I
Yeah.
was like, oh, okay. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Synchronicity. Isn't that great though?
It's
I mean, I'm an intuitive astrologer too, apparently, for myself.
you are, and you need to stop saying you're a bad astrologer. First thing, you're
Thank you.
casting that spell upon yourself. So our words are spells. So you're
Yes.
the amazing intuitive astrologer, and you will be that. So yeah, your Saturn or the Chiron return is directly coming May of next year. But what's happening now is that it's inching up closer and closer. And so
Mhm.
these little dark nights of the souls that you're going, or I shouldn't say little, but they're kind of
Yeah.
like these previews of the massive changes that you're going to overcome. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be way worse when it's direct. It just means like, hey, we're giving you these breadcrumbs now for you to look into these things and really go back and heal them because you're ready. You wouldn't have been ready 2 years ago, or definitely when you were 14, it was happening, right? And so there was nothing that you could do, but now you're at this place of becoming ready for it.
Mm. So, in case, just in case, because we moved through that, Chiron is the wounded healer, and Chiron is core wounds. And so, yeah, of course, being abused as a child, it's aligned with the core wounds. I mean, core wounds can be like, just they can be associated with events, but they can also just not really. It's just sort of our karma, or the lessons the shadow side of the lessons that we are here to learn, and yeah, resource from. That's what I think about the core wounds.
Yeah,
But yeah, and so yeah, in a sense of it, I guess, like in a real life sense of it, being abused as a child, um, from 0 to 18, but the specific kind that I was talking about happened from 12 to 18. And that's definitely, I mean, a psychologist would call that a core wound in that sense, because it's, formative years and everything. So my Chiron is coming, and I guess I'm not within a year. I'm within a year and a couple of months of it. And so yeah, that stuff is dusting up from the shadow. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And the way that we heal our Chiron is that we step into the house that it's in and the sign that it's in. So for you having it be in Aries is that you actually need to feel these Aries energies, which are anger. You need to go through the fire, and it's going to
Yeah.
feel like you're walking through fire.
Yeah.
It's going to feel like you have to go through hell and back almost to be able to allow that to burn and to burn down those memories to, of course, they're a part of you and they've made you grow stronger, but that you're not holding on to them anymore. It's like you've gone past all of these growth edges, and now you get to burn all of that away. So then you say, and here's what I want to have instead. And that's what you get to create. And then with this being in the ninth house is of the higher mind, and it's of the gurus. It's also of travel, and it's of being abroad, So I even think that during this exact time of the Chiron return, be at a retreat or be, somewhere abroad where you are like, I get to expand my mind. So yes, I remember and I'm healing this memory, but I'm also seeing what else is possible for my life, because it's very easy for us to get trapped into our minds, right? Or to get trapped into like, oh, it's these four walls. But then the moment that we step outside, or that we go talk to someone, or that we leave the country, or whatever that may be, we're like, oh my gosh, there's so much more. I'm here to do so much more. I'm here to either share my story or help other people who went through this, or, really shine my own light and live in my joy. And that is healing the wound. And the beautiful thing about Chiron is that it's not just the wounded, period. Thank God. It's the wounded healer. And so you take that wound that it is, and that you get to become this healer through that tragedy. That is what makes you this healer, because we all are healers. We all have this gift to be that. And it's how we move through our past trauma that's going to allow us to become that healer, and then also become the healers for our souls, so that we can live this life that is of our dreams. Because everything that we dream of, we're supposed to have. We get to work through these wounds, and thank goodness for astrology to see, okay, and here's what it is. And I'm guessing yours also had something to do with like you being able to be independent, and you had to break away. You had to leave, you had to be on your own. And it would make sense that if there was any type of physical abuse or emotional abuse, or, even sexual abuse, sometimes like this anger, because the Aries energy, the shadow of that, is very ruthless and reckless. And it can, be scary and very frightening at times, because there can be where it feels like this war. And so that's what you had to kind of go up against. And now you get to go with love, right? You heal all of that with the fire of love, and with that intention of, I'm actually imagining this like burning, bursting flame within me, that love is going to kill out anything that is not of the highest good. It burns that down, and that you get to be this light. It's kind of like the most beautiful piece of fire. We think about fire, and when it's at that place of the blue flame, or where it even looks like white within it, like that's what you now radiate, and that's what you act from, and that's how you heal it.
Wow. That's mind-blowing. And it's literally, so I've actually been able to, I guess, kind of relieve some of those core wounds a few times, I mean, yeah, it's a journey, right? And the way that it is, just to share with everyone, and mine is mental, emotional, physical, and sexual. It was all of it. All of it was both done to me and also modeled to me. Like my father didn't hit me, but he beat my mother, so that kind of thing. And, so, but then I had a second, my mother married a second time. And then that's when the things became more direct to me. The thing is that with these core wounds, how they can be actually the resource for you as a healer is that somehow, as you were saying, like it's still there. The memory is there, but when the healing happens, we don't resonate with it. So it doesn't trigger pain anymore. It's weird. And there's layers and layers of it. So I've already done this at least once. And that's why I was so confused. I'm like, I'm 48. Why am I reliving something that it feels like it's happening to me today, that happened when I was between 12 and 18. But I did go through, I burned it out. That's exactly what happened. And when I was talking to that friend, I was angry and I was yelling and I was just saying all the things that I was feeling and thinking. Again, I had these attachments that kind of came along and they were thinking my thoughts for me. They were causing thoughts. But I guess that's, you know what I mean? Like we can reframe it and go, well, these attachments we always think of as bad. Like it's a demon possession and that BS. But no, maybe it was a gift, because they showed me the thoughts that were still in me,
Yes, absolutely. And that's why I think it's so great when, I feel like the word trigger is used all the time now, right? But it's like when we have someone who's triggering us, or when we're triggered, take that as a gift. Be like, great,
again, I'm laughing because you are saying it's like you're listening. You have a speaker and you bugged my home because because it is used a lot, and it's unfortunately used a lot by people like I'm triggered, and so everyone else is supposed to apologize. But
Yeah.
it's like we're never going to be able to talk then. Your wounds, your triggers are yours, and when they are revealed to you, that is a gift. So of course I will be more sensitive, and I want to help you with it if you're going through that, but that doesn't mean I'm never supposed to talk about something, that happened to me, or
Mhm.
yes, sorry, I have to just tell you, like, I mean, there's too many things you're saying, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. But it just, when we have these triggers, it's like that's your Chiron most of the time. That's either
Yeah.
going to be your Chiron or your Pluto somehow speaking up to you to say, hey, we now have the knowledge, the conscious knowledge in this lifetime to be able to heal it. And we've never had this many tools before. We have the awareness is huge, and then actual steps to take. I mean, there's thousands of modalities that you can do to
Yeah.
work through these things now. And astrology just shows you, okay, I'm probably going to be triggered by this thing because this is my Chiron or this is my Pluto. And you can go from there.
Well, this has been just so amazing. I have come away with so much personally, and I feel like everyone else has too, because you broke down some of these categories. And so you do one-on-one sessions. I want you to, as we are wrapping up here, I want to let everyone know how they can work with you. I mean, you have your links and everything in the description, but what specific ways can people work with you?
Yes. Okay. So I'm actually launching a couple of really fun things this summer. So one is that there will be an Astrology 2 class, which is level 2. You can buy the level 1. I did it in the winter time. You can get that on my website. We walk through every single thing of how to read your birth chart. What do all the signs, the planets, the houses mean, and then putting it all together. And then in this level 2, which will be coming at the end of April, is going to be about Chiron and about Pluto, about the nodes, the north and south nodes, so where you're going, where you came from, and then really how to put together reading a chart. So, where you're saying I'm about astrologer, but you know so much, so don't say that. But anyone who also may feel that way of like, oh, I've read this thing or I've been kind of obsessed, but I don't know how to actually read my chart. This is going to be this beautiful mastermind of how do you then learn to do that. And then another thing that I'm super excited about in the summer is that I'm going to be starting an astrology camp. So, like I was saying earlier in the beginning, this is going to be really fun of just getting together with people and sitting and learning about ourselves, playing games and going through some processes of healing at the same time. So there will be this deep emotional layer and very, very soulful, but also having fun in nature. So there will be one of those happening here in Asheville, North Carolina, which is where I live. And then, so that will be kind of the mountain version, the actual camp version. And then we'll have a more luxury version in Mexico, either in Tulum or in Bacalar, which is this beautiful area an hour south of Tulum.
Wow, that's amazing. I've never been there. It's one of those places, like, it's so beautiful and iconic in our beautiful country. That sounds amazing. And I love that it's a camp. It's not even a retreat, it's a
Right?
camp.
No, it's camp. It was funny because I was looking at places around here and I was like, oh, I need to find a place. And I found camp and I was like, astrology camp. That's it.
That's amazing. And yes, it'd be fantastic if you had those like every year, and you had summer camps every year, and going deeper and deeper and creating community. And because we have so much community now this way, and so
Right.
to be able to come together, that's wonderful. And then of course you do one-on-one sessions, right? People can have their natal chart read. What kinds? You have natal chart. What else? Is there anything else?
Yes, I have soul purpose, which is just basic natal chart. You can do a year ahead and you can combine these two as well. If you're like, I want to do 30 minutes of me and 30 minutes of, what's coming up for me. And then also relationship readings. So synastry, I love doing those to look at, you and your partner, or it could literally be you and your mom, you and your business partner, anything like that. And then I also host webinars, and I will talk about, different things that are either going on currently, or we'll talk about the moon and about what's coming up, or about learning about your moon. So you guys can learn all about that just by following my Instagram, Rise with Natalie, or my website, risewithnatalie.com. And it will always tell you what's coming up.
Well, this has been really amazing, everyone. This again is Natalie Holbrook, and I have to sincerely, deeply thank you for. I mean, she asked for my birth details in advance because she wanted to give me some reading right here on the podcast. So that thank you so much for that. How generous in so many ways, not just with giving me a reading, but generous of spirit, generous of knowledge, generous of heart. So thank you so much for being on and giving us your gifts.
Thank you. This was such a gift for me too. So thank you. It was so great to do this.
And you will find all of Natalie's links, the way that you can connect with her, in the description of this podcast. But I want to, while I have your ear, mention that her podcast is called the Cosmic Earth Podcast. Ooh. And we're making some plans for me to go on there too. So I can't wait to check it out. I haven't. This is my first meeting of Natalie, and I'm really excited to check out because Cosmic Earth, that sounds like my jam. And she's my jam anyway. We became best friends on this episode, as so often happens, and I love it so much. All right, everyone, that is what I have for you, and a reminder that the Channeling Intensive is open for registration right now, and also a reminder that I have openings in my calendar. I'm doing one-on-ones again, and I am loving it. It is getting more and more mind-blowing, the work that we get to do together. So I have different options there for my empathic channeling sessions in which I also use hypno healing, and the channeling is, and that's because it's you. You are having your guides and your just basically your soul being channeled back to you. So check that out. And also, I just want to let you know that I have my YouTube channel and I am publishing there regularly. So that's youtube.com/Tricia Carr. All of this is in the description. So above and beyond, I want to say thank you for shining your light on our beautiful world, and thanks for tuning in. I love you, whoever you are.